Hello and welcome to this week's Preps Preview, basketball edition. Alongside Justin Conn, I'm Aren Dow. We got one game of football to talk about, but a lot of basketball. Girls basketball started on Monday, and boys start next week. But we do have the Trojans who are still playing, and they take on Downs Tri-Valley this week up in Downs. And it should be a good game.
Up and Downs.
Up and Downs. There you go.
Maroa, I don't think this is for Maroa-Forsyth. I don't know that this is the playoff run that everybody expected. I think that people when it first came down, they were going to be in Class 1A. I think most people thought it was going to be a cakewalk, sort of like last year was, but it hasn't been. I mean, it's been kind of just obviously Jack Hockaday's injury has put a hamper on things a little bit, and I think the teams have done a great job of coming in prepared. I don't think they played a team as good as Camp Point Central. Maybe Stockton last year. I think that was the only team that was even close to what Camp Point was. So it's been a little tougher road. Obviously Arthur was better than I think we expected them to be. But they're in the semifinals, and honestly, I feel more confident than ever that they're going to be the state champs right now. I really do, just because they've kind of weathered the storm, and I know Hockaday still. I don't think he's going to be healthy, until this season's over. I imagine there's going to have to be some time. I imagine he misses some time in basketball. We'll see, but I still feel like I feel like the last week's game was the state championship game in 1A.
Yeah, obviously Camp Point, very good team. I mean, they beat Carrollton, another team that went pretty far, 33-0. So I mean, Camp Point definitely is legit. It'll be interesting to see how, with all this is the time of year it starts to get really windy. You kind of saw it last week, and for Downs Tri-Valley, that's exactly what they want. But I know you saw it last year at the state title game, and there were a couple games that before that run where Jack Hockaday really didn't have much trouble in the wind. I mean, as windy as it can be, and he's seen some really rough conditions. I've seen him air it out and have little trouble with kind of dealing with the wind and finding ways to kind of put himself in a good position. I think with Downs Tri-Valley having that rushing attack, I mean they averaged nearly 10 yards a carry against Casey, which that really surprised me. I thought Casey, with a line that they had and the way the defense played all year, that kind of surprised me how good Downs Tri-Valley was against them. So that obviously, that's kind of the big matchup. Downs Tri-Valley's offensive line against Maroa's defensive line, and if Maroa can kind of get that push and those linebackers can help, I think they can take that game.
A little disappointed it's not Casey, just because it's such a fun, has been such a fun matchup. And the fans seem to really have that sort of it's friendly, but it's also a pretty heated deal between the fans of those two schools. So that's always been a really fun time going into that one. I think that some of those fans have even got to know each other over the years, and those two programs definitely have a lot of respect for each other too. So you really kind of were hoping for that Casey Maroa matchup again, but I know Maroa doesn't care who's on the on the other side of that line. So it should be a great one, and I think that. I would love to see Maroa play somebody that was like them at least once in the playoffs one of these years. It seems like they always get into the playoffs and play all these power running games, but that's what they're going to have. And I know Downs has a lot of speed, but that's Maroa's strength as well. So I just think those linebackers are capable of kind of chasing all that down and shutting it down. So should be another fun game. Now we're going to switch to basketball. I know football people, that's like a grating noise to their ears, but I know that Aaron and I are both big hoops guys, so definitely looking forward to this. Let's start out with our top fives. We're going to do our preseason top fives, so feel free to just hammer us on these after we're done. I'll go first, Aaron, because I know you were saying you were dying to hear mine. Number 5, I'm going to go with Nokomis. Of course, they were the state team last year, got third in state. That team lost a lot. But first of all, we're used to Nokomis, reloading. They haven't really had a bad season, and I don't know how ever, maybe not since Steve Kimbrough's been there. They have a great backcourt. Tyler Herbstreit and Austin Chauncey are both back. A couple guys in the front court, Austin Lee and Marcus Chauncey, who didn't necessarily make a big impact last year all throughout the season, but they showed up sometimes, when they needed them to show up.
And those are big guys too.
And those are big guys. And plus, I know they have, sort of guys to fill in for some of the guys they lost last year. They're going to be good. I think they could be better than last year, actually. Whether they'll be third in state again, I don't know. But I think that overall throughout the season, I think they'll be better. Number 4, I have arrows and all kinds of things where I change some stuff, but I'm going to go with MacArthur at number 4. I love how deep they are. I think that they could go with about 10 different starting lineups, and we've seen Philippe Phillips play a lot of guys over the years, and I think you'll see that a lot this year. And obviously, the key will be Marcus Bartley though, and him sort of taking that next step. If he can be, and I don't think he's going to have the type of game he had in the regional final last year every game, but if he can be that type of player who puts up big points every game, I think that'll help them. And then they have a little bit more size this year. They're not tall. They're not. But Camonte Johnson's a guy who's 6'2" with long arms, a sophomore that's going to come in and help them out. And they're going to have a guy, Dallas McClain, who can shoot the ball, which I think really would have helped them last year against Taylorville in that regional final loss. I think Kamari Jones is a guy we've seen signs of him being, a possible breakout player, and I know Philippe Phillips really likes him to possibly, if he can do that this year, all of a sudden that's another step for them. They have a ton of speed off the bench with Trez Spates and Jaquay Owens, the football guys that'll kind of give them a little, extra athleticism. A lot of great pieces there. It's just going to be sort of a situation of getting them all to fit together. And, when does that happen? How quickly does that happen? I don't know. It'd be nice to see it happen early and then to really reel off a great year this year. I think that'd be a lot of fun. My number 3 team is St. Teresa. Not a lot of glamorous players outside of Christian Williams, but workman-like guys who fit, around Christian well, who kind of know their roles, play their roles well. And I think we're going to see a really Christian Williams this year who's going to take over games. And that'll be the key for them. Sort of like Bartley with MacArthur, where if he can come in and really be the type of guy who, you're just, where teams are just like, we can't do anything about this guy. I think all of a sudden that really, St. Teresa's been a good team these last couple of years with Christian, but I think they can be a team that makes a postseason run with him as more of a killer this year. Number 2, I'm going to go with Teutopolis. A lot of things tell me not to put them there just because they lose so much from last year with Kyle Promer and Derek Smith in the backcourt, but they have a good backcourt. Cody Will and Reed Hardy are good players, and Brett Meddy in the post is a guy who's going to, I think, have a breakout year. He sort of showed some signs of that last year in the postseason, and I think my first year here, T-Town had a little bit of a down year. They weren't bad, but they maybe like a 17-win team, and since then it didn't matter who graduated. They just been able to bring up guys and replace them. So definitely T-Town number 2, and I think Lincoln at number 1 is just, they are loaded. They have Max Cook, Gavin Block. Central State 8 is going to be tough this year, but I think Lincoln's the best team and what's going to be a really tough conference. And I think Lincoln, they haven't made that big postseason run here in recent years, even with those good teams with Ben Brackney and Jordan Nelson. But I think this team's capable of it. So I think they're the best team, and they had that little bit of a rebuilding year a couple of years ago, but they really take that word seriously. When they rebuild, they do it right, and this team is stacked. So, Aaron, that's my top 5.
It's funny because we don't look at each other's top 5, and mine's not exactly the same, except we have just one team that's different, and it's weird, to go through it and see all these. But yeah, my top 5. We'll start with 5. Arthur Lovington. I really think especially coming out this football season, they had a really good year and kind of maybe using that motivation a little bit.
They were my number 6. If I would have had a 6,
okay.
I think.
And I really had Nokomis at number 6. So, So I think Tyler Shuring is kind of keep that rolling. And the rest of my top 4 are all the same. I have MacArthur, St. T-Town, Lincoln. I think the key for MacArthur, I really want to see. A good ball handler and someone who can hit the outside shot consistently. I think, that's what Marcus Bartley does so well. And then they can find someone who can complement that. It allows him to do whatever he needs to do and do it well. When he kind of is handling the ball, I feel like, that kind of took away a little bit of their scoring potential last year. If they can have someone else and they can move the ball away from him so he can just kind of move around the court and kind of see where he needs, what he needs to do, that'll help. And I know Jerome Adams, he was starting to hit the outside shot a little bit last year. I think if they can kind of get that going, Dallas McClain, I like a lot of these younger players. Someone like Dallas McClain, if he can come and run the point, that'll help out a lot for MacArthur. St. T at number 3. I like JD Magnolly quite a bit. I saw him last year. I thought his footwork was really good. Having a big guy to help Christian, so Christian kind of slash and you see, and I feel like what Christian Williams likes to do, he kind of likes to start around the top of the key and kind of move in and slash into the paint. We'll kind of see, what else has he developed over, playing AAU, and if he's developed some more post moves or more an outside shot. I'm excited to see kind of what he's developed over this year and kind of what changes he's made to his game. T-Town, like you said, they don't really lose anything. I mean, obviously the seniors, but it seems like they just keep reloading over and over. Brett Meddy, if you can have someone who comes in as a freshman and play at Teutopolis, that's a huge deal. For him to come back, high school basketball, there's so much about star power, and if you have one or two good players, that can kind of put you a pretty long way. And the fact that T-Town, they'll have 4 other guys that will be able to complement Meddy, they should be able to make a run again. And Lincoln, I think Will Podbelsic, he was the only senior to graduate from that team. They have everyone else back, and I know Lincoln fans are probably upset from that loss they had to the Chatham-Glenwood last year, a little controversy at the end. I think Lincoln, honestly, I think they could make a pretty good run at state. They have everything. They have Neil Alexander. Obviously, that team, you'll have discipline. They have three-point shooting from nearly everybody on the team. They know what they want to do, and they do it every time. They like to control possessions. They have what they want to do down. And Lincoln, like you said, they're in a really tough Central State 8. And that only helps them kind of go into the postseason, help see all these different kinds of offenses and what like between Southeast and Chatham-Glenwood, who will have really good teams. Lanphier obviously will have a really good team. That'll just help them kind of prepare them for the postseason as well.
Talking about some other teams, we're going to talk about a team. Each of us are going to talk about a team who we think could either be really good or maybe not so good record-wise this year. I'll start out, and my team is an interesting team, a team that I didn't get to see as much last year as I'd hoped to, and that's Warrensburg-Latham. Last year they had the Fab Five group of freshmen who really got a lot of attention, and they were showed some flashes, and now this year they're sophomores. I don't think this is a make or break year for those guys. I think if they struggle, and struggle to win games again this year, I don't think that's an indictment of them. They were overhyped or anything like that. I think that I think you can give a group like that another year, your sophomore year, because you're still playing against mostly seniors. But I also think this year the conference outside of St. Teresa and Meridian, I don't know who the pecking order is after that, and I think Warrensburg could be that number 3 team and possibly. So I think that's one of the most interesting things going into this season. What will Warrensburg be? Will they be? Will those guys now take off and be one of the elite teams in the area, or is it going to take another year? And I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, my breakout team, the team that could kind of go either way, I kind of have is Monticello. Nick Stokowski, who's back. He really kind of, whatever the team needed him to do, whether they needed to take over games or he just kind of stepped back and let Cruz and Phipps work the paint. Whatever the Monticello needed, he was able to step in. It's just, how do they replace all those seniors? They replace 4 of those starters, a huge senior class, and I think Stokowski could bring that team, and they have a lot of good players. Monticello is always well coached. They have a 6'8" kid, and no matter how well you can play, being 6'8" always helps.
And Monticello always has 6'8".
Yeah, I don't know where they
come from. Right. They always have them.
But Stokowski, I think he could carry them to a pretty good record, but it's just a matter of how do they fill those other spots and how do they kind of sort that out to see how they fall this season.
Yeah, guard play, it's sort of every year for them is a key, and Stokowski can be a guard if you want him to be. That's the beauty of a player like that. He can just do anything you want him to. We're also going to talk about, each of us are going to talk about a breakout team. My breakout team this year, and I don't know, I think this is going to be a popular pick among a lot of people, and it's an easy one to make, and that's Cerro Gordo Bement. Obviously, now that they're together, we saw what happened with the football team when those two squads went together. It seems like where one squad was maybe missing something, the other one filled it in, and I think we're going to see that with the basketball team really definitely this year. Two teams that were pretty good before are now going to become a really good team. You have I think Connor Gross, who's been a star in this area for the 3 previous years. He can shoot the lights out, and then the Cerro Gordo side gives him a little height with Josh Hayes. It's kind of an under the radar guy who's about 6'4", and he can really play. And they just have quite a few athletes. You have Steve Isbell, a lot of the guys from the football team, Cole Blickensdorfer, guys that are good athletes. And I just I really feel like that they're going to challenge Arthur in the LOVC, and that's going to be a fun rivalry and a fun race this year in that conference. So I think the Broncos are going to be pretty tough.
See, I always thought I kind of felt when I thought the obvious pick was Warrensburg. I think a lot of people with the height that's kind of put on them. So I think Sangamon Valley. I really feel like as second year where they finally had time to really play together. Gives Josh Myers another year to kind of see what he has and work with that. You have Hunter May, who's a 6'4", kind of replaces Andrew Urbanowitz, who really last year, he did a majority of the scoring and rebounding, so it'll be a much different offense than it was last year. I think it might be a little more up-tempo. You have Cameron Gentry who's coming back to run the points, and then obviously the Hutchins twins. So you have, I think there's a lot of pieces that they can put together that I think, it was a tough season last year. They had 5 wins. I think they could easily, hit that 500 mark and kind of be on be on the cusp of kind of breaking in and really surprising a lot of teams this year.
That's it for boys basketball. We're going to talk about girls basketball real quick. I think there's going to be a lot of unknowns this year in the girls game. We know Clinton with Haley Toohill and Haley Ginger and that sort of they have a little bit of a Fab Five there with their starting lineup. That they're going to be really good. Central A&M is just going to reload. If they're going to be good every year, until further notice. And then I think Effingham has a nice team this year, and of course Two Topless. Same thing on the girls' side for them. Outside of that, I think there's just a lot of unknowns, and I think it's going to be fun this year to see some teams that maybe we haven't seen. Are not expecting to be good, kind of come up. Some players that we don't know much about right now are going to step up. So I think the girls game is going to be a lot of learning this year on everybody's part. Some new teams and some new names, but definitely those 4 teams I named are going to be really good.
And definitely Two Topless. They bring everybody back from last year. And I think if they don't make state, I'll be shocked if they don't make state. And the team that I'm thinking kind of be a breakout team. They had some success last season. Justin knows I've kind of talked them up a little bit. I think Sullivan. I think between Britton Boyer and Emily Newhouser, I think those two can lead Sullivan to a pretty big OCAR run. They'll have Clinton. They'll have Central A&M to kind of go up against. But I think that'll only just kind of help prepare them for teams down the road. I really think. That's the kind of the breakout team this year too.
The girls' season obviously started last night, and the boys' season is going to be starting next week. We got the turkey tournament, which is always a lot of fun out at Stephen Decatur. So make sure you check us out on HR Preps, of course, on Twitter and Facebook as well, and we'll see you at the games.